What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome a new co-host, Paul Czarnecki from UCCS The Scribe. He is the biggest Rodgers hater you know, and he's also the second biggest sports fan other than myself. So thank you for coming on, Paul. I really appreciate this.
What's up? No, I am so excited to be on it. I'm glad you nailed that I am the biggest Rodgers hater ever. And I can't wait to talk about how he's ruining the Green Bay Packers as a whole, because he is doing some stuff that is messing with the franchise that I used to love. And I can't wait to get into this video, man. Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
We've been talking about this for probably 6 to 8 months now. So we're both just super big sports fans. Paul writes about it all the time at UCCS. So he is very excited to be here. So we're doing like a two-parter today. So this will be one video and then we got another video. So this first video will be our week 2 power rankings. So they're going to be ours combined, not based off of mine. So the order might be a little different from what mine were coming in the preseason. So if that's like any confusion there. And then the next video will be a week 1 recap, maybe a week 2 preview there. So we're very excited. So we're going to start from the bottom with the worst team we believe after week 1 is the New York Jets. And Paul, I'll have you take it away about the New York Jets.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the New York Jets. And it's not even by the fault of the fact that the Jets were necessarily the worst team last week. I think that there might have even been worse teams than the Jets. And it just sucks because they are just not moving in the direction that they really want to move in with Zach Wilson getting hurt. And Flacco is going to be the guy moving forward. But last game against the Ravens, they didn't even look bad through the passing game. Flacco threw 59 passes.
Flacco threw for over 300 yards, I think.
Exactly. And he looked great doing it. They didn't really get Breece Hall involved in the run game as much as I wanted them to.
That didn't make any sense to me.
They had him in the backfield. They had him catching passes out the backfield a lot, though. He had 7 catches. So,
really?
I like that he was doing that, but I can't imagine Michael Carter being a better option than Breece Hall moving forward.
I think the big thing that for me with Hall is he's just a more souped up version of Carter. Like they're similar players, just Hall is the better player in my opinion overall. And I thought that defense played pretty good. I mean, they weren't like so outclassed by Baltimore that it was like a lopsided victory like we would have seen in years past. Like they gave a little bit of a fight. Sauce Gardner had a nice pass breakup on Andrews for that ball that Lamar threw. I thought it was a touchdown, and then he made a really great play on that. So,
and I think that Sauce Gardner is going to start to evolve into the player.
Oh yeah.
The good thing about being a cornerback in the NFL is you don't really want people talking about the great plays that you make. You don't want them throwing to you at all. And that's what was happening with Jair Alexander a lot. That's what was happening at least a little bit with Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
But Sauce only got the ball thrown to him like 2 times last game. And one of them was a fantastic pass breakup on one of the best tight ends in the league. So I'm excited.
Yeah. They're definitely going in the right direction from their offseason. But, obviously the Zach Wilson injury has kind of brought them back. And speaking of injuries, our number 31 team, unfortunately, is the Dallas Cowboys. And seriously, it's from no fault, no reason other than Dak got hurt. They did not play very well in their Sunday night game against the Bucs. But I think we both had them 13th coming in. And the only reason they fell this far down the list is because of that injury. And I think you're starting a guy in Cooper Rush that has limited experience. You have an offense that's looking for an identity because Tolbert didn't play last night. So it was literally, I think it was CeeDee Lamb. It was Noah Brown. And I don't even know who their third guy was. Maybe Simi Fehoko. Was that it?
Potentially. I don't know. I was hoping that they would get Kevontae Turpin kind of going in there, but I know he's like
he only returned punts, I think, for him. I think
but I like him as a receiver because I watched a lot of the USFL and he's a good player. He won MVP in the USFL. But
yeah, I mean, we saw what he did in preseason. So
yeah,
those 2 touchdowns against LA. But yeah, I didn't think their defense played bad. I thought their defense was actually better than expected. They kind of just had Brady looking for whatever they could give him. And then he finally was able, they only scored once, I think. Only scored 1 touchdown. So it was was a really sloppy game from both teams. And I think that if Dallas had all their pieces like healthy, I think they probably win that game, and they're probably a top 10 team, fighting for the NFC East.
They definitely get close. And I'd really like for them to go out there and actually get, like, it almost seems too logical to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo right now, because you have the easiest schedule in the NFL. So either you trust that you can win your games with Cooper Rush, which I don't know if they can. I know that they beat the Vikings last year with Cooper Rush.
They did,
but
on the road.
On the road too. But if they believe that they can actually do that, then yeah, keep Cooper Rush and let's see what he can do. But if you want to take advantage of this easy schedule, trade for Garoppolo or just sign Cam Newton.
Yeah, they've been linked to Cam Newton. I've heard that they're not looking for a quarterback. Like, they're just going to look for a backup and roll with Rush, which I think it's just Jimmy Jones being cheap personally.
I think
but
so.
we'll kind of see how that works out for them. Our number 30 team here is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team that's in the midst of a rebuild. They've got a second-year quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, and they looked good for parts of this game. The first 2.5 quarters, they were not great. Then they had this little like quarter between like the middle of the third and the middle of the fourth where they were really good, and then they blew it at the end of the game. So I know you watched this entire game, being the Commanders fan you are. So I'll let you take this one away.
I did, and I was so impressed by their linebackers. Devin Lloyd led the team in tackles, and as a rookie, that's what you want to see.
Jeez.
And Trayvon Walker became the second rookie ever with a pick and a sack in his NFL debut with TJ Watt, who we'll talk about later. But Trayvon Walker looked phenomenal. But on the offensive side of the ball, Trevor Lawrence looked all right. He really stepped it up in the second half.
Yeah,
but
that's for sure.
I was really happy more than anything to see that they were actually utilizing Christian Kirk. Because they paid him all that money, and I really wanted him to not be a waste. And he led the team in receptions and yards, I think. So
yeah, I think he was both. He had over 100. So
I was a big fan of that. Just the fact they were targeting him, and they were exploiting the Commanders' defense a lot. Like, the secondary could not stop them outside of one safety. So
yeah,
I still think that they did good. I was very surprised to see Robinson get most of the carries over ETN, but
ETN did not have a good first game. He just looked timid, I think is the best word to describe him. I think there was the play, the Derek Forrest play, where he got clobbered, and it almost looked like he was like anticipating the hit and not like ETN, where he's just like breaking dudes' ankles and stuff that we saw at Clemson. It looks like he's a little bit timid because of that foot injury. So I think that's in the back of his mind right now. And I think once he gets through that, I think they have a really nice running back duo. I criticize a lot of their moves. I criticize them paying Christian Kirk, the Trayvon Walker pick, Foyce Oluokun being paid. But we'll see. I think for that first part of the game, though, they were outcoached like crazy. I think that proves kind of that I was not a fan of the Doug Peterson hiring, and that kind of proves that point of mine where it's like they're going to get outcoached a lot of times. And I think Lawrence and that defense bailed them out personally.
But you know what? The AFC South is absolutely wide open, and there's no doubt in my mind that they can literally make a run at least second place. I don't have a doubt there.
They probably could, because that AFC South is it is just awful. We move into our number 29 team here, a team that might have had the worst roster in football, and they came away with a win in just the worst weather condition I've seen in a while. The Chicago Bears here with another second-year quarterback. It's kind of the theme of this, this bottom tier here. And Justin Fields, how do I describe Justin Fields' performance? Because it wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. It was like, can solid be the word to describe it? He made some really nice plays. I think that he was rolling like left and then threw it back across his body to Dante Pettis for that first touchdown. And I was like, yes, I need to see more of this. And then there's ones where it's like he overthrows a wide open receiver, and I'm like, no, stop doing that. And it was really tough weather conditions. Montgomery couldn't get going. Their offensive line is the worst in the league. They actually were not as bad as they could have been, but their run blocking was terrible, and their defense which is kind of like the pulse of this team right now, stepped up in the second half for sure. Jalen Johnson had a really good game. Debo was like non-existent in the second half. And that was part to due to Jalen Johnson, who I loved coming out of Utah. But yeah, they definitely took it to San Francisco in the second half, but I think part of it was weather conditions and Lance being kind of with that pressure of, oh, I'm the franchise now. And he kind of like stiffened up in the second half. So,
yeah, I think that one thing that I would take into account is the weather conditions, because it really is tough to gauge whether someone's good when they're in something that doesn't even feel like football. Like when the camera is on that last play that Lance overthrew out of bounds, when the camera is so covered in rain and residue that I can't even see what's going on, it really makes me question how they're actually playing. But I love seeing that Justin Fields, his touchdowns were to Equanimeous St. Brown and Dante Pettis. He is really making the most of a bad wide receiver room. So I really hope that he can keep getting it done. Obviously, as a former Green Bay fan, I don't think that they're going to keep it up, which is probably why we have them so low. But they're going to Lambeau next week. We'll see what they can do.
They are going to Lambeau next week for a big Sunday night game. We move into our number 28 team here, a team that was probably in my top 5 most intriguing teams in coming into the season, in the Atlanta Falcons. They had a lot of different guys I was intrigued in, starting with former number 2 overall pick Marcus Mariota, who played a pretty good game, I will say. Lorenzo Carter, Arnell Bichetti, that edge duo I was very intrigued by as well. Trey Anderson, Big Sky player. Shout out to the Big Sky. And, they just had some, AJ Terrell. They had a lot of guys that were, it's a weird mix of like young guys and veterans. And I was just really intrigued to see how they would play.
I just really liked the fact that watching a Falcons game, of course, we've all seen the memes. It's always the same. You never really know what's going to happen. And of course, they're going to blow their lead. They're up by 16 in the third quarter. They will lose that game. But I loved Marcus Mariota. I thought he played really, really well. Cordarrelle Patterson had over 100 yards. I know he had a lot of carries, but he had over 100 yards. But I like that they're trying to find some sort of offensive identity without Matt Ryan for the first time in a decade. So it feels really good that they're trying to find that. But AJ Terrell kind of was burnt toast that week.
Yeah.
And he had to line up against Michael Thomas most of the game.
Mike Thomas had a great game.
He was very surprising to me. I really didn't expect Michael Thomas to have that game. So I don't even blame Terrell for that. He was just coming off a high of what should have been an all-pro year. And
he got robbed for sure.
He got robbed for it. And then he comes in and he's probably a little bit excited and then messes up a little. So it's fine. I don't blame him. I'm sure Atlanta can bounce back. No doubt in my mind.
Also, shout out to my Drake London haters out there, because Drake London's a beast. I just want to
absolute one of the better route runners. He's very good.
And that was the big criticism of him. And the clip that I sent you of him running a whip route on Lattimore and being like 5 yards open, I was like,
absolutely crazy.
He's going to be fine. Yeah. So next team, number 27, another team in the NFC South here. It is the Carolina Panthers. Baker's revenge game. So close. I was cheering for him so bad to win it.
The whole world was against
Browns
Cleveland.
fans. You were cheering for Carolina. Don't lie to me. I know
I'm sure they were.
Don't lie to me.
Oh my.
So it's good to see CMC back out there on the field. Was my pick for comeback player of the year. My runner-up for offensive player of the year. Looked pretty good. I felt like that offense finally got into a rhythm in the second half. And dude, why do they have Ben McAdoo calling plays? Like what? Like
it's just such an ill-advised decision to have that. Because if you're going to revitalize your offense,
if you went from Joe Brady, who was like, I made Joe Burrow from a 7th round pick to the GOAT of college football. And now you're going to Ben McAdoo, who benched Eli Manning's like 250 game straight starting streak for Geno Smith.
I know. Hey, wait, don't
okay.
Geno Smith.
But like Giants Geno Smith. So terrible Geno Smith.
But it's just like if you're going to make a whole new offense that now has Baker in it, make sure you change something else. You do not want him calling the plays for Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, no, that was just a dumb decision. And then defensively, they played pretty well. I don't think that you should be giving up 26 points to Jacoby Brissett, but it is week 1, and they do have a lot of weapons. Amari Cooper was locked down. Amari Cooper wasn't anywhere to be found. I think,
and a lot of that was JC Horn.
Yes, yes.
And I'm happy just to see him on the field, and for him to go out there and stop the best wide receiver on Cleveland is amazing.
He was in the conversation for me for comeback player of the year, but it's hard as second-year player. You're playing a position that's like volume stat oriented, so it's very hard to win that. But JC Horn definitely would have been a front runner for defensive rookie of the year had he stayed healthy next year. So we move into 26. Another AFC South team. We got the Houston Texans here who tied the Colts. This was this the most unexpected finish of the week?
No, I would, well, obviously a tie is unexpected, but in terms of what who I genuinely thought was going to win, I would still probably take Giants beating Tennessee, but only because I'm really high on Tennessee.
I think it's one of those two, so.
But in this game, Davis Mills, first half, phenomenal. He looked so good. Yeah. He was targeting OJ Howard the whole time. He was basically staring him down. And he got him 2 touchdowns, which I don't even remember the last time OJ Howard scored a touchdown. So
OJ Howard comeback season. I saw that he caught the first one, and then he caught the second one, and I'm like, dude, you got Brevin Jordan. Use him.
I know, and I love Brevin Jordan.
Good for OJ Howard, but I don't care. You've got Brevin Jordan. Use him. Yeah, I think the Texans are going to be kind of what they were last year, in that I think more so this year they'll be in a lot more games, and they'll just be a scrappy out. They won't be an easy win. But I mean, the AFC South is the most open division in football, so I'm not going to leave anything out. But I just don't think they have the firepower on either side of the ball to be able to compete with an Indianapolis or even a Tennessee, who I'm very low on this season as well.
I'm just gonna stay excited for Stingley. I think that he's got it in him. But
Stingley. We called Stingley top 3.
Yeah,
we did call that. So that was one of our better takes from the draft. That Stingley's gonna go top 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then moving on to another really good draft take we had from the New York Giants here at 25. We called their flip the order, but we called their picks, Evan Neal and Thibodeau. So the Giants were one of the surprise teams of the weekend, like we talked about. And I just want to say, first and foremost, Saquon Barkley is back. Thank you for
I can't believe it this week. I can't believe it, because I was so low on Saquon Barkley, but he played great. He was the best running back last week. So
he definitely was old Saquon. And I was one saying that the Giants should consider trading him, because he hadn't been healthy in 2 years. He just didn't look like he was returning the value of the number 2 overall pick. And it gives him a fresh start. It gives him somewhere to be. But Saquon stuck to it, and he just, he looked like old Saquon yesterday for sure.
I remember seeing a tweet go on my timeline at around halftime when they were still trying to figure out what was going on, and seeing that Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson were barely getting any snaps in the first half, and bench players were getting snaps over them. So I'm glad that they were able to correct that, because, and I know Wan'Dale Robinson went down with an injury.
Yeah, Wan'Dale got hurt.
But I do think that Kadarius Toney can bounce back. And defensively, I don't really know anything about the Giants defense. We didn't get to see Azeez Ojulari or Thibodeau. So
yeah, they won that game.
To see that, because that sounds so deadly. But hopefully we'll see it next game. I'm really hoping so.
The Titans don't have great receivers, and the Giants don't have great corners. So it was somewhat of a good matchup for them on defensively, and then offensively, with Landry being hurt for the Titans, they were able to take advantage with Saquon and really, look actually competent on offense, which the last vision we saw the Giants was Jake Fromm and Mike Lennon running literally the worst offense in NFL history.
Crazy.
So we move on to our number 24 team in the Seattle Seahawks, who had a somewhat shocker last night. I think that was one where you could see it happening with just the environment. Russ coming back to Seattle being one of the loudest stadiums in football, and they were so loud last night. And shout out to my man, Geno Smith. Let Geno cook is the new tagline for the season, because he was cooking last night, baby.
Yeah, Seattle really looked unlike what I thought Seattle was going to look like. And a lot of that has to do with their defense. A lot of that has to do with Jordan Brooks. You're stepping up in absence of one of the best middle linebackers of the 2000s and Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
So you're replacing him. And I know Jordan Brooks led the league in tackles last year, but he's still underrated. And he's still going out there and stuffing Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, people that like running backs that people thought would be the best duo in football. And he's making plays on it every single time. And I want to really just get next week to figure out if this was a Seattle win or a Denver loss, because we know that Denver made their fair share of mistakes.
They definitely did. Clock management at the end was terrible. And a lot of people are saying, you know, it's the refs, it's this, that. I was very low on Denver coming into the season. And I think a huge part of it was the Tim Patrick injury, because Russ likes to throw the ball outside the numbers, and Patrick's a great possession receiver, and he's going to be like a second, you know, like a Brandon Marshall to him. And then you have Cortland Sutton, who's your you know, breakout star receiver, and then Judy in the slot. And, you know, now you got to go to Hamler, and it's kind of like, it doesn't really fit Russ's game. Although he's played with a guy like Hamler and in Lockett, it's not a great fit for Russ. And then their defense was the second reason. I was not very high on this defense from Denver. Now, Seattle's defense, on the other hand, was great. Tariq Woolen, who a lot of people were questioning just because of how stiff he looked, was great. He was phenomenal. He was phenomenal last night. And so was Kobe Bryant. So we'll see how that
and Quandre Diggs. He played great.
Yes, and Quandre Diggs as well. Jamal Adams, I think, is done for the year, though. That's a tough break and Jamal has kind of been overhated the last couple of years. I think he has a very unique skill set you don't see a lot from the safety position of the league. He's almost like a third linebacker out there. He plays a lot towards the line of scrimmage. He doesn't do the high safety role very well. That's not his job. His job is to come up and just blow stuff up at the line of scrimmage, really. That's his job. So then we move on to our number 23 team here. We have the Detroit Lions, who gave a pretty good fight against the Philadelphia Eagles, almost came back just like they did last year in week 1 against the Niners. This team was one of the teams I was maybe a little bit higher on. I think if they had Jameson Williams from the start of the season, they would have been my 7th seed in the playoffs. I'm just saying that. They would have been my 7th seed in the playoffs.
That's crazy.
I know that's crazy because their defense is awful, but I think they would have been such a high-powered offense that you would have had to score 40 to keep up with them every week. But
I physically, like, I can't believe how well, like, obviously the Lions defense did bad, but I can't believe that this Lions team put up 35 points. And it's not a diss on anybody. Like, Jared Goff had a good run in Los Angeles, but he also had one of the best defenses in the league.
Yes.
So to drop 35 points with Jamal Williams against Jamal Williams. I mean, with Jamal Williams, who scored 2 touchdowns on the ground, and he's one of the better backup running backs in the league. And then you also have a receiving room that now has to adjust away from Jameson Williams right now. And now you have like Quintus Cephas trying to make catches for you.
Yeah.
So
I like Cephas though.
I'm a big Cephas fan because he's a Wisconsin guy.
He's a Wisconsin guy. Of course you are.
I would have loved to see Aiden Hutchinson do more. I believe he only had
a
one tackle.
Quiet week.
So I think he had one tackle.
Which was surprising because, you know, with his motor, I figured that he would have at least like 5-6 tackles, maybe a TFL. But, you know, it's just kind of game by game. And Philly's got they got weird run schemes, man. So yeah. And then we've got our number 22 team here who took one of the biggest L's, in my opinion, of the week in the Tennessee Titans here. This is a team I was not very high on coming in this year. I'm not a big Tannehill guy. I'm kind of out on the Tannehill experiment train. Derrick Henry's coming back from injury. They don't have established receivers besides Robert Woods. And they lost a big part of their defense before the season even starts in Harold Landry III, who I am super high on, Boston College guy, had a really, really good season last year, finally showed what he was capable of, and they lose him, and he's a huge pivotal part of their scheme.
Well, I think that I don't think that people knew that Tennessee was going to have this bad of a defense going into it. Because when I saw Harold Landry went down, I know a lot of people don't really know the impact that Harold Landry really has. And when you see him go down, you just think that he's just a linebacker. Oh no, whatever. And then you let up 23 points to the New York Giants, which is more than the Giants
21.
should be scoring on. 21. Which is more than they should be scoring on you. It doesn't matter. The Giants are not necessarily a good offense. So when you get into that, I'm expecting more, but I'm also expecting more than 20 points from Tennessee. I know that Derrick Henry, he didn't really look that good.
No, Dontrell Hilliard was a star.
Dontrell Hilliard looked really good. Tannehill looked fine. I just can't wait for them to move on from Tannehill. I really can't wait for Malik Willis to step up there. Not because Tannehill's bad, but because Malik Willis
Tannehill's bad.
I don't think he's that bad. I just think that Willis would help kickstart the rebuild that they so desperately need.
Yeah, they do need to enter that one.
Once AJ Brown was traded, you should have just started your rebuild.
True. So we move into our number 21 team here is going to be the Cleveland Browns. Obviously, they're not at full strength with the Deshaun Watson suspension. Jacoby Brissett looked okay. They have a lot of weapons on this offense to cover that up, and their defense looked pretty good for the first half and a little bit suspect in the second half. I think this is going to be a very streaky team with the way they're set up right now, with having a bottom 3 quarterback in the league right now in Jacoby Brissett with great weapons, and then a monster of a man in Myles Garrett. And then you got Denzel Ward in the secondary, but really no one else there that's a household name to this point.
They're definitely going to be a confusing team throughout the season because
they're going to be hard to rank.
They're going to be hard to rank because a lot of people like to blame what Cleveland did last year, which was miss the playoffs, on Baker Mayfield. Yeah. But then you also see people saying, well, we went 8-9 last year with Baker Mayfield. So with Jacoby Brissett, that some people think is better than Baker Mayfield, they should have a winning record. But even if he's worse than Baker Mayfield, does everything does the superstar power you have on the defensive line and one corner in Denzel Ward and one of the best running attacks in football, does that propel you to a higher spot than we have them, which is 22? And I don't think it does until Jacoby Brissett plays, I don't know, I want to say like a starting quarterback, but he started for like 5 teams in the past 4 years. So they obviously see something in him to replace Watson, and they're not going to do anything about it. So
they're similar in this aspect to Indianapolis. I said this about Indianapolis. They can only win one way right now, in my opinion, and that's running the football, time of possession game, and playing defense. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many teams it's going to be personally. And that's kind of what I talked about with Indy. That was the one thing that kept me from saying, this team could be in the AFC Championship game with Indy. And this is why I was kind of like that with Cleveland. Once I heard the Deshaun Watson news, it's like, I only think they can win this way. Once they prove they don't, have to win that way, then maybe we can talk about potentially moving them up. Yeah. So now our number 20 team here, the team that sorrowed everybody's hearts here in Colorado last night, the Denver Broncos, who, the reffing was questionable. I will say that. The clock management at the end of the game was probably the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, any Pee Wee coach would have called a timeout there. Any Pee Wee coach would have called it.
As a Packers fan, I was not expecting that from Nathaniel Hackett at all. He's been very good at clock management most of the time. So I don't really understand what happened there, but they lost and they deserved to lose. There was no ref fault there. They really did deserve to lose.
There was some questionable calls by the refs, and the Broncos were getting flagged a lot, but there is no excuse to lose a game where you go inside the 5-yard line multiple times and fumble twice on the 1-yard line on 3rd and 4th and goal. You can't do that. You can't do that and expect to win the game.
So crazy to think about. Like that is like you can take you can take Russell Wilson out of Seattle, but you can't take the Seattle out of Russell Wilson. There will always be a fuck up, on the 1 yard line.
Yeah, dude, that.
And that's all I have to say. There's nothing else. Who cares how they played? They just lost the game. That's why.
I think we can end Denver's segment right there. That was
perfectly fine.
That was a great quote. So now we move to our number 19 team. This was probably the team out of anybody from last year, the result coming into this year that I thought would like completely just tank. And it's the Arizona Cardinals. And it was, in my opinion, they had the worst defense in football. And that kind of reigned true. They were going up against Kansas City Chiefs, high-powered offense, but there was nothing I can take away from that Arizona game defensively that I look forward to for the rest of the season. Even Isaiah Simmons was, and granted, he was guarding Travis Kelce, but they looked overwhelmed defensively.
I know that JJ Watt was hurt, and I know that he wasn't playing, but that wouldn't have meant anything because when you realize that Kansas City, they still have Patrick Mahomes, but they got rid of Tyreek Hill, and a lot of people were questioning whether Tyreek Hill was like the main contributor to that offense over Mahomes, and now you're replacing him with someone who would probably rather make TikToks on the sideline, and you really think, like, is he going to be the guy? And then they dropped 44 points on you. Yeah. So I really don't think that this Arizona team is going to get anywhere close to the title. In fact, I think Seattle might have a better chance after what we saw last night.
And Kyler had a good game. I will say Kyler did ball out, but he had no help yesterday. And Hopkins is out. Hopkins is suspended. Marquise Brown, they traded for him. Didn't really do much. Zach Ertz was not really there in the party. It was really Kyler, and that was about it. I mean, James Conner was okay. Like you scrap that game if you're Arizona and say, all right, week 1 is this week, whoever we play. I think they don't play Seattle. San Francisco does. I don't know who they play this week, but
Arizona plays Vegas.
Okay, Vegas. Yeah, you scrap that and you're like, all right, this is week 1 because there was almost nothing positive to take away other than Kyler Murray's play yesterday.
100% agree.
And then we move into the number 18 team you are very fond of, the Washington Commanders. I'll let you take this one away.
I can proudly say that I have been on the Carson Wentz hype train since they traded for him. Yeah. And I knew that when they got that and that huge contract and that they were going to pay for the whole thing, I was like, there's a chance this could be a mistake. But man, Carson Wentz I don't even care that he threw maybe the worst interception of the day by just kind of fading away and tossing it into Trayvon Walker's hands. He threw 4 touchdowns. I can't name the last time a Washington quarterback threw 4 touchdowns, and 2 to Jahan Dotson, who looked amazing. Jahan Dotson had 2 catches, but one of them was one of the better ones. And then Curtis Samuel, who's finally back from an injury, looks phenomenal. And everyone was criticizing him. The defense except for the fumble, of course. The defense was without Chase Young, and they're going to be without him for a few more weeks. But Cam Curl was hurt, and Derek Forrest stepped up and made maybe some of the most clutch plays. He had one of the biggest hits of the week, and then made the game-sealing interception. So I'm a big fan of Washington. I do think that they have it in them, and I think the reason why they're so high is because the upside is so there for them, depending on what Wentz can do. I
definitely think they're going to be one of the streakier teams. I think my biggest concern was the run game. And now Robinson's out. I thought Robinson could have been a real beacon of light late in games where it's like, okay, you need somebody to grind out yards, get Brian Robinson in there. But I was high on these weapons. I think McLaurin, Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick. I think that's a really good, solid group of playmakers around Wentz to elevate his game. And Wentz elevated his game this week, which was huge for them. If Wentz can continue to do that, because I was one of the ones that said they paid way too much for Wentz initially, and because they're paying his full contract, I was like, you could get somebody in this draft, which they did in Sam Howell, and develop them with Heineke as your bridge quarterback. But they were like, no, let's go get Wentz. Let's go upgrade. Let's go for the playoff spot this year. And they are certainly in contention for that NFC East title, no doubt.
I can't wait to see more.
Me too. They're definitely one of more intriguing teams for me as well. All right, now let's make some people angry. Let's make some people angry. At number 17, we got the Miami Dolphins.
I would like to clarify from my end that if it were up to me, I would have Miami above New England.
So I'll take this one because
Go ahead.
I'm the Patriots fan and Miami's below the Patriots. Spoiler alert, the Patriots are 16, so they're right next to each other.
Yeah, we can just talk about the game.
We can just talk. We can talk about both. We can talk about both. So Miami offensively, they're who we thought they were. They're going to throw screens. They're going to throw RPOs to Hill and Waddle, and they're going to get them in space. Tua, you look at the box score and you're like, oh, Tua had a good game. You watch the film, which I did before doing this. I counted like 12 screens Tua threw. I think it was 12. Tua he did not play well yesterday. And you can say like, okay, he made the right reads. He's throwing screens and RPOs. Like it's not a hard offense to run. Tua really got carried from, playmaking. Tyreek Hill had some really nice plays. Waddle had some really nice plays. I will give Tua the throw to Waddle, the touchdown. That was his best throw of the day and one of the best throws of his career. But Miami's defense looked good. They stopped the run very well, especially in the second half. Their pass defense was pretty good. They got, Brandon Jones had a free blitz and got the strip sack on Mac Jones, which I put fully on Mac Jones. And, their defense kind of, stopped us, but New England also moved the ball a lot. New England moved the ball a lot. And that was the strength that I had with Miami was their defense. And I think their defense showed some cracks, even though they only gave up 7 points. Like, I don't think they played absolutely amazing. And I just think when this Miami team, if that's the peak of their offense, right, what we saw yesterday, they're not a top half team in the league. You can't win games today throwing screens and RPOs. We're not in 2018 where the RPO was starting to get into the NFL with the Philadelphia Eagles. Like you can't do that, in my opinion. And they couldn't run the football yesterday either. So there's no real pressure taken off of Tua. It's all on Tua, and I don't think Tua is going to deliver, man. I need to see more from this Miami team to put them above the Patriots.
I will say that from a casual watcher of just looking at stats and highlights and seeing everything, it did look like this game was more of a New England plethora of mistakes from the Patriots more than the Dolphins. And we can talk about that right now because as someone who knows that the Patriots have this receiver room that they really want to develop and just make sure that everything is good. And Mac Jones has the weapons. To see that Kendrick Bourne gets 2 snaps is just very unfortunate to me.
So from my understanding, it was a dispute with Patricia in the preseason game against Carolina. He missed the pregame meeting and he didn't play in that game. They had him as an inactive. And then he did not play the next week, I don't think, or hardly played. And then he played 2 snaps in week 1. And to me, it should have been, okay, he misses that preseason game. You don't miss another meeting. Maybe you hold him out of the week 3 preseason game, but week 1, like it's the season, it's ready to go. And the one play, 2 snaps he was in, he got a 41-yard catch.
Wasn't he second on the team of receiving yards?
Yeah.
He had 2 catches and he played 2 snaps.
He had one. He had one catch.
He played 2 snaps. That's crazy.
And that was stupid. But from a New England standpoint, from a New England fan base, and I'm probably more optimistic than anybody about the Patriots just because I grew up watching this team dominate for a decade. I've seen this team with a 0.02% chance to win a game, come back and win in the Super Bowl. Like, I just have more optimism because Bill Belichick's the GOAT. They're about 3 to 4 plays from winning this game. So the Mac Jones strip sack was a key play in the game that they did not see Brandon Jones, who did a phenomenal job disguising that blitz. Mac missed the throw on the sideline to Nelson Aguilar, who was wide open. And if he hits him, it's a touchdown. And then even still, it's 20-7. They're driving and they look good. There's about 6.5 minutes left, 7 minutes left in the game. They hit Nelson Aguilar on a little slant route or an in, and he fumbles. And if he doesn't fumble there, you score a touchdown, let's say with 4 minutes to play. You kick it back to Miami. If you get a stop and you get the ball back, you got a chance to win the game. So I think it was a lot closer than people want to admit. And I don't think Mac Jones played a bad game. I think people are going to look at the box score and be like, oh, Mac was terrible. The interception he threw, Xavier Howard held Devontae Parker. It was a clear hold. I initially didn't think it was, and then I saw the replay and I was like, that's a hold. And the ball was tipped and was intercepted. And then he didn't get the blitz pickup on the Brandon Jones play. Other than that, I don't think he played a bad game. I think the offensive line was pretty good. I think the defense was pretty good. They only gave up 13 points. I mean, other than that Waddle touchdown at the end of the half, the defense played pretty well. Mm-hmm. And, I think there's a lot of political stuff going on with the offense right now. And that scares me. That's the one thing that scares me is the political stuff about the offense. Defense, I think they're going to figure it out. They're going to be fine. Belichick, they struggle in the first month of the season always on defense, and then they figure it out. And Jalen Mills got torched yesterday. Jonathan Jones was pretty good yesterday. Jack Jones should have had a pick, but Tyreek Hill made a great catch, bailing out Tua once again. Sorry, Dolphins fans, but I'm going to slander Tua whenever I get the chance. Linebacker play was not great from the Patriots yesterday, and then I thought their pass rush was better than expected. I just don't see a world where the Patriots at the end of the season are a worse team than Miami. I don't see it.
I 100% agree. And it's just, it comes down to the quarterback, and it will always come down to the quarterback. And I still haven't seen enough from him. And once he gets something, once he has that breakout game, that's when I can start respecting him. But at the moment, he still doesn't have it. And
he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't. We're both on the same page there. Mm-hmm. So then we have our number 15 team here, another AFC team, the Las Vegas Raiders. Personally, the afternoon games, I was kind of flipping back and forth, so I wasn't as tuned in. Went back and watched some of the film today. Derek Carr was awful.
Derek Carr was bad.
Not good. His pocket presence was terrible. He was missing throws. He was inaccurate, which normally Derek Carr is a very accurate quarterback, and he was checking it down a lot. And I was just like, man.
You know what can be said, though, about that? He was inaccurate, and Devontae Adams had an 100-plus yard game and a score. So
still the best receiver in football.
Still the best receiver in football, or second best.
Nah, I think he's best.
You know who I have a number one. I'm just kidding. Okay, it's not Cup.
It shouldn't be Cup. But I think the concern for this team for me was defense. And I thought they, holding Herbert to 24 points, that's pretty good. That's a winnable effort from your defense. Mm-hmm. That traded Trayvon Mullen, traded they traded for Rocky Sin, sorry. But they traded Trayvon Mullen, trade away Yannick Ngakoue, brought in Chandler Jones. And, that's a winning effort from your defense that I think is definitely going to be their Achilles heel this season. And I think that this team just needs to get in a rhythm offensively. I think it's kind of like what I was with Denver about them being a fringe playoff team, is they need to find their rhythm offensively. And once they do, they will, run with it for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
So number 14, we got the New Orleans Saints. Jameis coming back from injury looked, decent. And then fourth quarter, he started heating up. Their defense giving up 27 to Atlanta. What were your thoughts on that?
I don't personally think that that's that big of an issue.
Really?
And that's only because I think that Atlanta is an underrated offense. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've always believed that Mariota has been a starting quarterback in this league and can continue to do that. And that Drake London, I know he didn't wow everybody, but he still played really well. And Cordarrelle was debatably a top 10 running back last year because of how efficient he was on the ground. Yeah. But when it comes to the Saints, it was their offense. And I was not expecting to look on Red Zone and every 5 minutes seeing Michael Thomas or Chris Olave or Jarvis Landry or somebody foaming at the mouth because they're playing so well and they're going crazy against Atlanta. I would have never expected that. And the Saints looked so good and better than anyone could have imagined. I am such a big Saints believer right now because the concern for me was the offense. They picked up Tyrann Mathieu, I believe. Yeah. I don't know if I'm right.
Yeah, they picked up Tyrann Mathieu.
Okay. So my concern was the offense. And then to go out there, they might have one of the better 3 receiver trios in the league, and we don't even know about it yet.
Oh man.
We might see that soon. And
How Jarvis Landry led this team in receiving, I don't understand.
it's crazy.
Because I thought Jarvis was washed, man. And he definitely shut me up and definitely played very well yesterday. And I think
absolutely.
I think this is another team where it's how high is their ceiling? We don't really know because Jameis is a huge wild card. Michael Thomas looked great coming off injury, but you never know. They got the rookie Olave and they got Jarvis, and then Kamara's hurt right now with a rib injury. We don't know if he's playing on Sunday.
He is.
And they got a good defense. It's just when are they going to get hot, and are they going to get hot at the right time to not only, because I think this team's a playoff team. I think this team will be a playoff team, but can they compete with Tampa for that NFC South title?
In a weak division that guarantees them 3 more games against the Panthers and
the Falcons.
And the Falcons. I don't know. You're right. I really do think that they could do something special. Who knows?
Then our number 13 team, I was probably the highest I'd seen out of anybody on this team coming into the season. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had them at 14, I think, coming in. And for me, it was defense. And they just lost their heartbeat of the defense for 6 weeks in TJ Watt. So we have them here for now. That you could be seeing movement there in the future. But I think I wanted to give the Steelers this respect because they still have a great defense. They were creating turnovers left and right on Sunday. Minkah Fitzpatrick looked great. Ahkello Weatherspoon looked great. They were all over Joe Burrow. I think they sacked him like 7 times. Highsmith had 2 of them. So he's maybe an even bigger breakout this season than he was last year as well.
Highsmith had 3 sacks. And
he had 3?
I didn't even realize that when I was looking back and just seeing it. Alex Highsmith had 3 sacks.
I thought he only had 2.
But with the Steelers, it's just the whole thing of, okay, is Trubisky really the guy or not? Do they really want to move forward with him? But again, they did make the playoff. The Bears made the playoffs with Trubisky, kind of with the same formula, which was relying on such a dominant defense. And I swear the Steelers would have been higher had TJ Watt not gone down with an injury because he really is their guy. But outside of him, their defense looked damn good.
Yes.
So good. And Najee got hurt too, and he was still able to score at least once. But against the defending AFC champions, they couldn't have asked for a better comeback game. And I wish that they just made the clutch plays. And that's Minkah. And that's always going to be Minkah. And I can't believe that the Steelers aren't even in a position where they have a winning record after week 1 because everyone expected the Bengals to dominate.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me on this team is how long's Najee out? How long's TJ Watt out? Because we don't know. Najee's kind of like, we don't know if he's going to miss any time or not right now. Mitch Trubisky didn't have to do a lot in that game. When he has to do something, when he has to elevate his game, will he rise to the occasion or will he fall like we have seen him in the past? I think is the big question for Pittsburgh right now. When we move on to our number 12 team, your AFC champion prediction in the Indianapolis Colts.
Mm-hmm. And I will still hold strong on that. Colts don't play well in week 1s. We know that, or week 17s, if we all remember last year.
Yeah.
So I think that just when it comes to the pressure, the Colts probably can't pick it up in the regular season. But I think the Colts have a winning formula. And that winning formula is that sometimes the run game will take you really far. And other times, one dominant receiver can take you so far. And people underrate Michael Pittman so much. I know that he's just another product of the Indianapolis Colts. It was the same thing with T.Y. Hilton. It was the same thing. He was underrated his whole career. People forgot he even retired.
People forgot he existed the last couple of years for sure.
So when you pair that with the best offensive lineman in the league and potentially a better offensive line with Braden Smith still there, I do think that their offense can take them far. And when it comes to their defense, Shaq Leonard, I'm a big fan of him, and I just really think that based on the offense that the Colts can bring, they can easily win their division, especially with the other 3 teams looking very, very bad.
Yep.
And I think that Jonathan Taylor, my Wisconsin guy, I do think that he's one of the best running backs in the NFL and maybe the best. I don't know. He might not even be the best in his division, but I still think that Matt Ryan.
Oh, Derrick Henry. Never mind. I got lost for a minute. I was like, wait, not the best in the division? And I was like, oh, Derrick Henry's in this division. I totally, like, I was like, you think James Robinson's better than this man? What? Damian Pierce? No.
It will all come down to if Matt Ryan actually plays like a functioning quarterback, because he looked really bad and fumbled the ball 4 times. So
Ryan did not look great. I think there's 2 big wild cards for this team. It is Alec Pierce, Cincinnati receiver rookie, who's really good vertical threat, solid route runner, good possession receiver. And I think it's whoever that second corner is going to be outside. So you got Kenny Moore in the slot, and then you got Stephon Gilmore. Is it Isaiah Rodgers or is it Brandon Faison? That's their 2 keys this season for them to be able to unlock a chance to be in the Super Bowl. So then we got our number 11 team here in the San Francisco 49ers. Definitely disappointing with the loss to the Bears, but I think part of that was the weather. A little bit Trey Lance maybe feeling the pressure a little bit of, now I'm the guy, I got to show out. And it was really, one of the toughest it's not his first start, but like first real start, to be in an absolute monsoon that was Chicago.
And you're given the guarantee by Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch that you're the guy.
Yes.
So now you know that you're not playing for your spot. You're playing to be a good NFL quarterback and to just perform. And Trey Lance, much to my chagrin, because he was on my fantasy team, played horrible. He really didn't play that well. I didn't see many plays by Trey Lance that I could say I was even impressed with. In fact, I think Geno Smith played better than him.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure.
But also they just couldn't. I don't want to put them lower because they really couldn't do anything in the conditions. I think that's why. But if next game we see San Francisco go out there and put up another stinker with Trey Lance, it's going to be really tough to still have you can't panic after 2 games, but they're not. I don't really have the faith in San Francisco with Trey Lance at quarterback if the following game he doesn't throw the ball well. We know he can run. He just needs to throw the ball well.
Yeah, their defenses was one of the reasons I was high on this team. They've got a potential defensive player of the year candidate, Nick Bosa. They've got one of the best linebackers in football in Fred Warner. They have a stout front 4 as well outside of Bosa. Their one question was a secondary, and they did have some lapses. They allowed Pettis to get wide open for that touchdown. And I think that's going to be their biggest question mark defensively. And then offensively, it's how is Trey Lance going to perform? He didn't perform very well in week 1 here. Conditions, obviously playing a factor into that. He's playing Seattle next week, divisional opponent. So it'll be a good test for him, and a defense in Seattle that played well in week 1 to see if Trey Lance is the real deal or not. But we move into our number 10 team here. Team that I personally wouldn't have this high. But it is the
I would love to explain myself on Philadelphia, actually.
Take the floor.
Because I do think that when it comes to the Eagles, yes, allowing 35 points to the Lions is tough, okay? But this Lions team has no quit in them, and we know that.
Yeah, that's
they were going to compete no matter what.
Dan Campbell's the guy.
Dan Campbell's the guy. The one concern that I had with Philadelphia going into the season was their offense. And their offense looked really good. It looked insanely good. Hurts didn't throw a touchdown, but he connected with A.J. Brown so many times. So many times A.J. Brown got wide open and Hurts was able to hit him, and they ran the ball. I was really excited with the way they ran the ball because Sanders got involved, and that's really all I was asking for, which is so crazy that Sanders got involved. Sanders scored 2, Gainwell scored 1, and somehow Boston Scott got in the end zone.
Yeah. So I think I've been saying, I got a good friend who's an Eagles fan back home. His name's Ricky Elam. I've been saying to him for 3 years now, I'm like, can we get Miles Sanders the ball more? Like he's a good running back. He's an underrated running back. Finally, I think they're going to be able to do that. My biggest question with the Eagles is when Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball, when the game is on the line and Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball, when the run game's not working, can he deliver? He has in the past. That's my biggest thing with this team is I don't question their defense at all. I don't question their O-line is phenomenal. It's best in the league, in my opinion. I think they have a good group of weapons. It's can Jalen Hurts deliver in the clutch? That is the big question for me with the Eagles.
I hope he can. I put Jalen Hurts and Tua honestly at sort of the same pressure level because
I would rather have Hurts and Tua.
Well, yeah, obviously. But
yes, I think they're both.
I think that they're both because they both have the weapons to do well. It's just a matter of can they produce, and we've kind of seen 2 seasons of maybe they can produce and maybe they can't. So
my hot take entering this season was Hurts would get him to the playoffs, but he would play poorly enough that they get a new quarterback next year in the first round.
That's potential. That's like Mike Mularkey getting fired after Tennessee made the playoffs.
So yeah, that's for sure. And then moving on to our number 9 team here. This is the highest riser for me from week 1. And it's not, it's a factor of both. They played well and other teams didn't impress. It's the Minnesota Vikings, who will have the number 1 receiver by the end of the year in Justin Jefferson. I called that this man would get a 2,000-yard season. He'd won up Cup, and he had a great start with 158 yards. And the Packers didn't put Jair Alexander on him, which was I don't understand that move. They were stuck. They were like, we wanted to play zone, but you don't play zone against this.
You don't play zone against Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson will burn you play after play if you do that. And shout out Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins had a great game. Dalvin Cook was really solid in the run game. And that defense, man, if that defense can stay healthy, Minnesota is definitely a player in the NFC with Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith, who both had great games.
They really did. I don't even know what I can say about Minnesota except that it was so frustrating trying to regain my love for Green Bay back on our defense. Because obviously I'm not going to be a fan of the offense, and we'll talk about it in a sec, but I'm not going to be a fan of the offense. And then we go over to the defensive side, and every time it's just Jefferson 20-yard catch. Oh, you thought that was done? No, he ran an extra 50 yards and is now in the end zone. So it's like, I don't even know what to say about it, but I'm a big Minnesota guy. So we'll see what they can do.
Yeah, Minnesota definitely earned my respect this week for sure. But moving on to our number 8 team, it is the Baltimore Ravens. They don't have a running back at quarterback, guys. They have the MVP at quarterback. I think he's going to be the MVP this year, Lamar Jackson. Decent start to that MVP campaign. They didn't, explode on offense like I thought they would, but the Jets are much improved on defense, in my opinion. Devin Duvernay season, baby. I had a bunch of arguments with people about the Ravens saying that they did not have the receiver firepower to do it. And I said, listen, they're going to be in 12 personnel, 13 personnel. They're going to use the tight ends as receivers mostly, because that's what they did when Lamar won MVP, when they had Hurst, Andrews, and Boyle on the field a lot of the times. And they got Bateman, who's a legitimate number 1 receiver. I think he could be a number 1 receiver. He's got that upside. Devin Duvernay, I thought could play in this league when he came out of Texas. Like, I really thought he could play in this league. So you've got him there as well. And you got Prochet, you got Tylen Wallace, you got a decent group of receivers, young guys that can develop. But a lot of people doubted them. I think this game shows that they have the amount of weapons on offense to prove that they can play.
I believe in it. Shout out Marcus Williams, too. I was a big fan of
Marcus Williams. Love Marcus Williams. Marcus Williams, one of the most underrated players in football for sure. But now we move on to our number 17 here in the Los Angeles Rams, your preseason number 1.
They were my preseason number 1, and I'm going to move them down because they look god-awful against the Bills. But I'm just going to wait to see how Stafford adjusts to adding another receiver to his team.
Do you think he's hurt? Do you think he's playing hurt? Absolutely. I think he's playing. I know they've kind of downplayed it. Like he missed part of training camp. They're downplaying it now, but I think he's hurt. And the other argument is he's a very streaky player. We saw that last year, like the last 5-6 weeks of the season. I thought he was like a bottom 10 to 15 quarterback. So it could just be that, but they did not look good. And their defense, I think, looked better than people thought. I think they got pass rush on Josh Allen. I think Aaron Donald's still that dude. And Terrell Lewis had a phenomenal game. That's what I watched. Justin Hollins should never see the field with Terrell Lewis on that team. Terrell Lewis over Justin Hollins any day of the week. Ernest Jones had a really good game. Troy Hill had a phenomenal interception off Josh Allen. I thought the defense played pretty well. I think the Ramsey touchdown was a blown coverage. And the first drive, the Bills were like unbeatable. But their offense looked awful, man. I mean, Kupp was getting open and I feel like it was just Stafford trying to find Kupp and no one else. There was
I can't believe that Akers got less carries than Darrell Henderson. That's crazy.
Akers only played like 6 snaps, and I think it was effort based, is what they said. And
I won't believe that. I think that Akers would have been able to contribute at a higher level than
that's what they say. So, and Robinson was open on multiple plays, and it's just like Stafford didn't trust him. And I was like, just throw the ball to Allen Robinson. Like, I want Allen Robinson to do good because he was a top 10 receiver in Chicago after the 2020 season. And then he just had like the Bears just forgot how to use him. Yeah. And he just, he didn't have a great game to start with. And I think that he played every snap in the first half. I think he'll be fine. It's just a issue between chemistry with him and Stafford at this point. So we move on to our number 16 here. It is your beloved Green Bay Packers. And I want to start with this one real quick. I just want to say something.
Of course, go ahead.
I don't think Packers fans should be worried. And I'll say this for why. Rodgers, without Allen Lazard this week, who besides Cobb is his most the receivers play with the most. I think Rodgers typically needs more time with others to get comfortable with his receivers. And once he does, I think they're going to be fine. I think I still had this team coming in at number 2 to start the season. I think they're going to be fine. Their defense is one of the best in football. And I think I think Joe Barry made a bad call staying in zone. I think he should have kept going man, especially with the group of corners they have and Jair, Stokes, and Douglas. But I don't think it's a panic mode for the Packers just yet.
I do think that is sort of half true, with the fact that I do think that Aaron Rodgers, and I will talk as much trash on Aaron Rodgers as I can, because he's not a good guy, and he's especially not a good teammate. He can't work with others. He just can't do it. And I really, and I'm just hoping that he can find it somewhere, maybe in that heart of his, that he can just figure out Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. They are rookies. Just use the time to get them involved in more like throw some screen passes. That might be on our offensive coordinator. Throw some screen passes. Maybe do some slants. Everything has to be a deep shot with this team. Yeah. And when you're going to, obviously Watson dropped the ball. We all know that. Yeah. But it's the first game of his NFL career in the first quarter, in like the first 5 minutes. Let's just relax. Aaron Rodgers, use your own words, relax. And I will say, I wish that Aaron Rodgers was getting the same criticism that we're giving like Derek Carr right now. Yeah. Rodgers threw a pick and fumbled the ball and didn't throw a touchdown. He looked horrible. And so, with the fact that Derek Carr had such a bad game and Devontae Adams was able to open up like in a 150-yard game, it makes me wonder moving forward, maybe Devontae Adams was that guy, and maybe Aaron Rodgers can't do it without him, and maybe he should have taken less money.
We have talked in length about Aaron Rodgers, and we both have agreed that he should have not taken that contract. He should have taken less money.
I'm sure that Devontae Adams would have gone to the Raiders anyways.
Yeah, Adams' decision to leave had nothing to do with Rodgers, from what I understand. It was all with the Packers, and they wouldn't pay him. And
but we were left with like scraps to sign wide receivers, and we used that on Randall Cobb to satisfy Rodgers, and then Sammy Watkins. So
it's Rodgers ruining the Packers franchise inside and out. We move on to our number 5 team here in the Cincinnati Bengals, who had a rough one. I know there's going to be people in this video saying stuff about Joe Burrow. Let me say something. So the reason why Burrow will throw more picks than Justin Herbert or anything like he did last year, he is a processor of the defense. He's still young. He's going to make mistakes, and he made a lot of mistakes in the game yesterday. He had 5 turnovers, wasn't great, but he's still a top 5-6 quarterback in the league. And you will see Joe Burrow on an absolute tear in week 2. I promise you, Joe Burrow is going to light up the stat sheet next week. And Jamar Chase was phenomenal as ever. And T. Higgins was out with a concussion this game. So, factor that in however you want. I think that they had every opportunity they had to win this game. They just didn't make the plays when they needed to. Their defense looked pretty good. I will say their defense looked pretty good. And that's one of the things that I was a little bit like, Cincinnati going to go back to Super Bowl or not because their defense, but their defense looked pretty good. Chidobe Awuzie was locked down in this game, has been on a tear since he got back from injury in the playoffs, had a really great Super Bowl, and now has had a great week 1.
If there's one thing that we can take away from that game, it's that NFL kickers are so valuable, man. But they're going to make mistakes.
And McPherson, man, who has been Money McPherson, as they call him, was not money. Yeah,
I mean, he got his extra point blocked. I don't believe
yes,
that.
He got the extra point blocked.
And that was on the long snap.
That kick you should have made.
Yeah.
To win the game. So
you know what? But you know what? Maybe a kicker revolution is starting. Like 3 hours before Hot Rod got cut. So we'll see what happens.
Hot Rod did get cut today. So we move on to our number 14 here in the Los Angeles Chargers, who had they had a good game. Khalil Mack looked pretty impressive coming over from the Chicago Bears. Justin Herbert was lights out, man, in this game. And, he was slinging it all over the place. Keenan Allen, I think, won't play in week 2, so that is something to note. Mike Williams was quiet, though, and I had Mike Williams as a guy that was potential all-pro season, but was very quiet on Sunday for sure.
Mm-hmm. So. And I feel like just in general with the Chargers, Khalil Mack and revenge games, he just goes off. You saw him. Remember Bears-Raiders? He killed it in Bears-Raiders. Then you put him up against the Raiders from the Chargers. He's so unbelievably good at what he does, and he doesn't even really get the credit that he deserves.
No, he doesn't.
A lot of different arguments for like best edge rushers. That always goes to we've seen the emergence of like Robert Quinn as well, and I would like Khalil Mack to still establish himself as being that guy because he is. He's just not a playoff performer because he hasn't been able to go there.
Yeah, that's true. I think prime healthy Khalil Mack is, dare I say, top 3 edge rusher of all time.
He's got a peak. It's up there. He has a peak like that.
Like if you take anybody in the league right now, healthy in their prime, give me Khalil Mack over anybody else, over Myles Garrett, over TJ Watt, over anybody. Give me.
I would take him over Aaron Donald, but that's it.
You would take him over Aaron Donald?
No, I wouldn't.
Oh, you wouldn't? Yeah. Me neither. Yeah. Me neither. But yeah, any edge rusher, give me over him. So we move into our number 3 team here. Originally, my preseason number 1, but I think injuries is a big part of this. Chris Godwin now out with a hamstring injury for multiple weeks. Ryan Jensen's out. It's a Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. It was a weird Sunday night game. It just felt, I don't know. It just felt like
it was just a little odd. It was just sort of, I felt like, because maybe it was because they played to open the season last year. Yeah. But it kind of felt like I was watching a replay. I don't really know why. It was kind of the same thing where Tampa Bay, sort of takes over early, and then we get to watch maybe a little bit of like Tom Brady masterclass. But if Dak Prescott was still in the game, maybe it would have ended different. But I really enjoyed watching Tampa Bay play, more so for the fact that they kind of have they spend so much of their offseason money just retooling. That's what they do. You lose Gronk, we're going to bring in this new tight end. We're going to lose Godwin to get to injury. We're going to bring in Julio Jones.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't even know what I can say about it.
I think the one thing I do have to say about the Bucs is everyone going around Twitter right now is saying the Cowboys are the only team to not score a touchdown in week 1. And I'm like, the Bucs are the only team to not allow a touchdown in week 1. Like, they were that good. And I think a lot of people are maybe reverting to last year where the Rams lit them up, but this is the same team for the most part that shut down Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and didn't allow them to score a touchdown. Yeah. They are still that team on defense, aside from JPP replaced with Joe Tryon.
Mm-hmm. And Joe Tryon's good.
Who could be a better player than JPP.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
And I love their secondary. I think that Tampa Bay has a very underrated secondary, especially with the safeties. We know Antoine Winfield's good, but like
Winfield might put himself in like the top 3 safety combo this year.
And he might, and he can do that. I believe in him.
So then we move on to our number 2 team here, who could easily be number 1 for sure. They could be number 1. We got the Kansas City Chiefs here. Mahomes, masterclass game. And to the people who said they missed Tyreek Hill, I want you to hold this for me. I want you to hold that. They're not going to miss Tyreek Hill. What?
It's backwards on video, though. You got to hold the other way.
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. Hold that. Because I made the take that they are better off without Tyreek Hill. They have a better receiving core without Tyreek Hill. And people were like, dude, they lost Tyreek Hill. And I'm like, they picked up Juju, which say what you want about Juju, but he's going to be their Sammy Watkins for when they had Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, and Tyreek. And they've been missing that. They've been missing like a physical presence outside. They picked up MVS, who's your Tyreek replacement at speed guy. And then they got Sky Moore, who they haven't had. They haven't had a route runner like him at all out there. So I thought that was great. And I thought their defense was phenomenal too, which was their Achilles heel last year. It's gotten better for sure. I think McDuffie, played pretty good in week 1. I don't think he's playing in week 2 because of a hamstring injury, but I really like that pick. And Karlaftis looked solid there in his first game at edge for the Chiefs.
I think that a lot of Kansas City's offense in the previous 3 seasons had to do with Mahomes just sort of scrambling, running around, whatever, and Tyreek Hill would just run in circles or do whatever and find his way open, and it would work a majority of the time, and it was a great play to watch. But I think Mahomes thrives better with big receivers that get open with their size, and that's Marquez Valdes-Scantling. That's Juju. That's but it's not Byron Pringle. He's not there, right?
No. You're thinking of not
Hardman. But yeah. But I do think that the Chiefs play better as a physical team because Mahomes has the power to get it to those big receivers. And Tyreek Hill, although he was good to run and do streak routes and beat defenses, whatever, teams are going to figure that out. But you can't figure out size. You can just adjust to it.
And
so
we saw that in the Super Bowl against the Bucks. They figured him out. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen that. We saw that against the Bengals. The Bengals figured him out. I think this gives them more in structure because I think that out of structure stuff only works for so long. Mm-hmm. And when you have an efficient moving offense that's in structure, I think that they finally will be able to, live up to their full potential. But speaking of full potential, we got our number 1 team here, the Buffalo Bills.
They're insane. The Bills are so good.
That was probably the biggest week 1 statement I've seen in a long time. And this team, I had at my number 1, and then I recalibrated it. They ended up at 3 for preseason, but they were my runner-up Super Bowl pick. They could have easily been my Super Bowl pick. I just felt like Brady last season. I felt like he was going to ride off into the sunset. But this team is stacked. Top to bottom, they are stacked. They outplayed the Rams. Josh Allen looked like a freak. Stephon Diggs was phenomenal, man. And he the clip of him turning around to the crowd and saying, "I'm him," kind of speaks volume for what he did in that game for sure.
It's just you're expecting the Bills to go in there, and we know that they have a high-powered offense, but they're going up against a historic defense.
Yeah.
And they have 2 players that are by far the best at their positions in Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. It's pretty hard to argue that.
Yeah.
And you go in there and then they have to go up against the Bills offensive line, which isn't too notable. It's just the Bills offensive line. And
Deion Dawkins was locked down.
And Deion Dawkins did so well. And then you also have Stephon Diggs being guarded by Jalen Ramsey, and he just gets torched. So now we know that even the best defenses in a long time that we've seen can fall apart because of better offenses. And this Bills team has the best offense in the league. And their defense doesn't get the credit. I mean, they do get the credit.
Yeah.
But this Bills defense is also really good. Micah Hyde is crazy.
Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are one of the best safety duos I've seen in a long time. And they're not full strength yet. They don't have Trey White. And the kid from Villanova, I can't remember his name. Benford, I think. Benford sounds right.
Yes.
They did a really good game. They had Kyrie Elam in there for stints. Those guys both played really, really well. But my one concern for this team was who's going to be their running back? Who's going to be their bell cow running back? And I will say James Cook fumbled, and that really sucked. But Zach Moss and Devin Singletary ran with a point to prove. They really did. They ran with a point to prove. And they were like, who are you talking about? Who you talking about us, being a liability on this team? Like they really kind of showed out, I think, in that. And that's something that stood out for us for sure.
Yeah. I 100% believe that the Bills can give the Colts a run for their money.
I think they can give anybody a run for their money. I don't think it's just the Colts, but
yeah.
So that will wrap up our week 2 power rankings. We'll be doing these weekly. There will be movement every week, so don't worry about that. We will talk through every team. Hopefully it won't be this long. I think this is our first time doing this, so we're kind of getting into a rhythm. But Paul, I appreciate you being here on with me. It's been something we talked about for a long time, and I think it's great to have somebody in here that can, kind of battle with me. And we don't agree on very many things. So I think it'll be very entertaining for
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was very fun to actually sit and look at the differing opinions and see what dueled and what actually stuck. Because already with building the power rankings list, we already had some
we had some disagreements for sure.
So I love it. Oh, I can't wait for next time.
So thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. And as always, have a great day and peace.